One, two, three.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former fighter, part-time writer, full-time observer, joined by special co-host tonight, a man with too many titles and names to go by, so I'm just going to call him the commish, former New York State Athletic Commissioner, Randy Gordon, and former Ring Magazine editor, Randy Gordon. Hello, commish. How are you?
Just great. Boy, talking about getting on into the studio. I mean, Queen Ronnie and I were out babysitting, and we just made it back in. I'm talking about, picture a television show. You're running into the studio as the red light's going on the air.
Randy, I don't know. Ronnie, don't take offense to this, but I'm going to mess with your husband a little bit. Okay. Sometimes in the beginning of the show, Jack and I will mess around and we'll talk about some other sports before we get into the boxing. Because he's a big sports guy and so am I, but boxing is our love.
Sure.
I get the feeling you might be one of those geeks that, other than boxing, nothing else exists.
Well, exactly. I mean, there are basically 3 sports, and it's boxing, more boxing, and pugilism. But you know what? And I'll admit this, okay? And a lot of people know. I'm a New York Met fan. Ooh, okay, I hear it.
That hurts.
I believe me, it hurt me during the season. I'm a New York Mets fan. I'm a Yankees fan. That hurt even worse. And then, I've been a Giant and Jets fan. And I can't pick one. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up with all these teams. But, man, I was watching the Giants yesterday. Oh, my God. I mean, I got to find me another team.
They're brutal. They're brutal.
I mean, I can't even, the Cowboys are just piling it on. And
I'm sick of the bully Cowboys, though. They beat up on weak teams. When are they going to show up and smack the Eagles or the 49ers?
You know what? I think they're going to have to do it. And I think later in the season, they're going to get their chance. But boy, to be a Giants fan, and look, I'm a Giants fan, but I'm not going to live and die with them. Many of my favorite fighters, I live and die with them. If they lose a fight, that's even worse for me. But you know what? I have a friend named, let's just call him, his name is Bob. And Bob for years is, when I tell you a diehard Giants fan, all he does, he sits in his huge house in his big den, watches the Giants game in a Giants shirt and a Giants hat. Nobody in his family could be around him. He's got to watch the game by himself. That means he's got to cheer by himself, which is rare. And of course, they're always getting beaten up, so he yells and screams. And the next day, because he's in his own business, he doesn't even go to work. Today, he was sitting around pouting. And tomorrow, he's going to be the friendliest guy again. But boy, those Sundays and Mondays.
I used to be like that with the Dolphins, where it's like I couldn't have anybody around me. But I outgrew that, and they've been irrelevant for 20 years. So, not a big deal. All right. So, there's some news in boxing. I guess the two big stories are the Saudi card that they're talking about that was supposed to be Usyk and Fury, and Terrence Crawford being stripped of the IBF title and Jaron Ennis being anointed the IBF champ. Now, look, let's touch on that first. I know, like myself, you are a big fan of Jaron Ennis, and we both think that he may be the next Crawford. How do you feel about the IBF stripping Boots? I mean, Bud. And remember, he was stripped basically because he agreed he had to sign a rematch clause to get the Spence fight. Spence exercised the clause. I mean, there still isn't a date yet, but technically Spence is in line to fight Crawford next at 147 or 154. The IBF didn't want to hear that. So they took away Bud's IBF title and they gave it to Boots. What do you think?
I think somebody has to sit down with the IBF and say, think about what this means. Does anybody out there, and I'm sure that anybody who might be watching us tonight, I know that we asked, Jerry Cooney and I asked on our Sirius XM show, who out there would like to see a rematch between Bud Crawford and Errol Spence? And if you don't want to see it, call in and tell us. Overwhelmingly, the calls came in. Who wants to see that again? Maybe the only one who wants it again is Errol Spence. And I don't even think Crawford wants to beat up on his buddy again like that. And it might be worse the second time. Nobody wants to see it. Crawford is saying, look, I've been killing myself to make 147. I'm moving up. But
a lot of people don't realize that 154 may benefit him as much as Spence.
Oh, of course. And I don't want to see the fight, a rematch at 154, 155, 156, 160.
Whatever.
I don't want it. I'm not even sure that Errol Spence should even fight again. But to take a rematch, which nobody wants. So what are they? Let's say they do have a rematch. What are they going to put it on pay-per-view for? 99 cents?
Well, you know as well as I do that if that rematch comes to fruition in the month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks leading up to the fight, we are going to hear every story in the world that Errol Spence couldn't make weight, was getting death threats. He thought his wife was going to leave him. He was having flashbacks from the car accident. They will do enough somehow, I believe, to make it a plausible rematch. But here's my take, and we'll get to the IBF. Excuse me. If I'm Errol Spence and I got whooped by Terrence Crawford the way I did, I would have to decide before anything, am I going to fight again? And if the answer to that is yes, and I have to go get that one last 1% because Crawford took 99 of it, 99 of the 100. If I have to go get that 1%, Randy, I'm not going to fool around and fight at 154 and have a couple tune-ups. I'm going to go into the fight with Crawford with the mindset of I can't walk away from this payday. I'm going to train like I never trained before. I'm going to be realistic and know that I could lose and it'll be my last fight. But I think that works out best for Spence. And if he goes and he fights somebody else and he gets beat, now he loses that big payday and he's pretty much done. Where if he gives it his best and Crawford slips up, maybe he could get lucky and win and he have another fight. But if he fights Crawford again and he's in great shape and if he's taking a bad beating, there's a towel. They can throw the towel and stop the fight. So I can see why Spence wants the rematch. If I were him, I'd probably look at the same way and I'd go out with a great career and say, okay, look, I had a hell of a run. I made 7 or 8 defenses. I was in the pound-for-pound conversation. I got beat by a guy who's going to go down as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the history of this sport. So I can see why Spence wants it, but I'm still wrestling with how I feel about them taking the title, and I get tired of hearing guys say that Crawford fears Boots. I love Boots. And I think in a year or so, he might be too much for Crawford. But you know what? I don't believe Bud sweats him. And I want to get that off the table. And if they sign the fight tonight, I'm sorry. With Bud having something to prove, as great as I think Boots is, he's not ready for Bud.
Okay, I'm gonna get that because we'll get to that in a few, because that is obviously, I'm not going to say the next big fight because it's not the next big fight, but it is
Not yet.
It is a huge fight for a little bit down the road. And when I say down the road, it could be this time next year. But let's back up a little bit. Errol Spence, I think, should have lost a lot of faith in his corner. He was getting beaten up, and I found myself basically screaming at the corner, when are you going to stop this fight? When are you going to throw the towel in? It is so ridiculous that you are letting this fight go on and on. Your guy is getting tattooed. He's getting knocked down. He is staggering. The referee's going to stop it soon. The corner should have stopped it, and they never did. And if I'm Errol Spence and I ever watch it back again, I would call the corner over and say, by the way, what were you doing letting me take such a beating?
And I'll tell you what they'll say. And I have a little less of a problem with the corner than you do. I believe Derek James was in shock. He never saw Spence take a beating like that before.
Right.
He's so used to seeing him win and be on the winning side and dominating. I really think he didn't think it was over, and I think he thought he could pull it out. Now, looking back in hindsight, that was wrong, and that was the wrong decision. But in the moment, I could see why he would want to bail a little sooner, because I just think he was never in that position before to see Earl taking a whipping like he was taking.
Well, Frank, I mean, that's totally correct. And every good trainer should know everything about his fighter, that if he's not even breathing right, something is wrong. And Derek James is a pro. And like you said, he knows his fighter. And if he knows his fighter and knows that he's never seen him like this, and now he sees him getting hurt every time he gets hit, and he sees him getting hit more than he's ever seen him get hit. He's got no defense. He has no punch resistance whatsoever. He's getting knocked down. He's going down and up like a yo-yo, and he's getting up like a drunk man, and you're not throwing the towel. And yes, he was in shock, but he's a pro. He was in that corner. Stop the fight already.
But Randy, he's still a human being. And I still think that he had that. You know what it is. When you get close to some of these guys, you just believe in them so much. Yeah. So, again, I think looking back in hindsight, you know, he did Earl wrong. But I don't know if I could kill him totally, because he had so much belief in him that he probably just couldn't fathom what he was seeing. So I'll give him a pass on that. But I think that Earl has to go at it one more time. I don't know what this does for Boots. I mean, Boots said he doesn't like winning the title like this. But you know what? If he gets an impressive stoppage and looks good in his first defense, everybody be yelling, okay, he's the guy. Let's see him in Crawford.
You know, we say we don't like to see him win the title like this. There have been other guys. Look, a guy by the name of Larry Holmes won the championship, the heavyweight championship of the world, by beating a champion who got that title basically the same way. Ken Norton was more or less handed the championship because Muhammad Ali took a rematch with Leon Spinks, and the WBC said, you can't do that. And what they did, they also knew that Ali was at the end of the line. They took his title. He was no longer champ at this point, and they let Ken Norton fight for the vacant title. And, of course, he wins it. Then he makes a defense against Larry Holmes, and Larry Holmes beats him. Now Larry Holmes goes on to become one of the great heavyweight champions of all time. And, look, he basically won it the same way. So I think that if Boots has greatness in him, which I do, and I think you believe that too, then it's not going to matter how he became champion. I think this is the best thing that actually happened to both Boots Ennis and to the welterweight division, because they've got a new king of the welterweights, and his name is Jaron Boots Ennis. We don't even know how good he could really be.
I agree. I don't think he's his potential. And what amazes me about Boots is I thought, and I've said, and I think you know this, for the last 6 or 7 years, at least since 2017, I've said Terrence Crawford's the best fighter in boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy, I'm telling you, I think Boots is every bit as talented. Now, does he have the killer mindset that Crawford has? And I mean, Boots has it, but Crawford takes it to another level. I don't know that, but I will say this. I think Boots might be a little quicker than Crawford.
Yes.
He's a bigger guy, and he might even punch a little harder. Not that those things would be a factor in him winning if they fought, or they wouldn't hurt. But I think Boots could be another generational guy.
From the moment I saw him, and I know that you have felt the same way. I've heard you speak about him years ago, so I will back you up on that. That, yeah, you are not a front runner all of a sudden jumping in. You have said it for years. And I do think he is faster than Crawford. And Jerry Cooney and I were talking about this today. I said, Jerry, how would you like right now for Boots Ennis to face Terrence Crawford if Crawford said, you know what? I can make 147. I'm not going to kill myself to make.
Before you finish, I'm going to say Jerry said no because he put himself in the same position with Holmes. I wasn't quite ready, and it's better to fight for the title when I can win it than to grab the money now and get beat.
Exactly. And exactly, you got it. And I do think, let's just play this game for a second. Let's say that tomorrow we wake up to hear that Terrence Crawford decided, you know what? While I can still make 147, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of extra effort to make 147 when I certainly feel better making 154 or any other weight. I'll do it again, and I will face Boots Ennis. I think that if the fight took place now, let's say December, January, something like that, I would pick Bud Crawford to beat him. I think it would go the distance, and I think you would have rounds that were rounds of the year, and I think you would have a very special fight. But I think right now, Terrence Crawford would win. 1 year from now,
yeah, that's up for debate.
Yeah,
Randy, two questions. One comment, one question. Comment is Craig Wright said that Crawford's fighting for legacy fights. I totally agree with that, and I think he's allowed to do that. I said on this show before, I really think Canelo messed things up because the fight I wanted to see, and I think it would have been a great fight, and it would have been a tough one to pick, would have been Jermell Charlo against Bud for the 154-pound title with all the belts on the line. Canelo messed that up. So now Crawford has some decisions to make. I do think he is fighting as a businessman now. So I don't think we'll see Boots until it's a big fight. And our buddy Joe Bergman, who watches your show and watches our show,
great man.
He wants to know what we think about. Well, don't be too nice to him. He's a big Philly fan. He wants to know. He wants to know what we think about Spence being a Hall of Famer. I used to have a vote. I no longer do. I withdrew from the BWAA. If Spence's name is on the ballot after 5 years, would he get your vote?
Boy, you know,
on the fence.
And I am a balloter, and you know, I know what it's like to have these ballots. I've actually got a few of them in front of me, which I already mailed in. I go over every single one of them. Would I vote for him right now if he was on? I don't think I would, because I mean that's kind of really a broad, open kind of, because we don't know who's going to be on the ballot when he does get aboard in, let's say, 3 more years. And he will be on the ballot. His name will be on it because I don't think he's done. And I don't think we're going to see him come back and lose and get beaten up the same way because there's only one Bud Crawford. So let's see what happens when he comes back. But I think if I had a vote right now, you got to remember, you're saying if he was on the ballot right now, well, then who else would be on the ballot that we're looking at? So right now, I don't think I would.
And if Craig Wright says Spence beat 3 Hall of Famers, unified at 147. People that have done less have made that. And Craig, that's the point I was going to make.
Sure.
Arturo Gaddi's in. Boom Boom Mancini is in.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate to use that as the case to put certain guys in. I would have to think about Spence. If I had to make the decision tonight, I don't think so. But I also think that's a little overrated because you could look at Mayweather's record and he has a bunch of Hall of Famers on there. He beat all of them past their prime. So what does that mean? But it was just something that Joe threw out. I think he's a Hall of Fame caliber fighter, Joe. I'll say that. As far as his skill set and what he brings to the ring, I think he could have lived in most eras and competed, and on certain nights, maybe even won the title. So I will not close the book on that. If I had to make the decision, though, I would say no. You agree?
Yes. I mean, again, if we had the list of 40 or 45 or 50 names, and that's about how many we get, it's not 2 or 3 names that we have to choose from. We could vote for 5 of maybe the 40 that are on the list. And of the 5 we vote for, only 3 can possibly make it in. It might not be any of the 5 that you voted for, any of the 3 that you voted for, but they give us 5 shots at picking a winner. And if that name Errol Spence was on there right now, I'm just not sure.
Okay.
That I would do it now, but let's see what happens, how this all plays out for the remainder of his career, which I'm sure is not over, although I wish it would be.
All right. Before we move on from Spence, I know you worked the fight for Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, which is the standard bearer for at least the light heavyweight legacy fights. So that's 1981. Looking back all these years later, we know what both of those guys are. Okay, all-time greats. Both of them make my top 5 welterweights. There's not a lot going on right now, and let me just play a little game with you, okay?
Sure.
Since Leonard Hearns, I'm going to throw a couple names out to you. I'm not going to ask you to pick who you'd win. I'm going to ask you to tell me who you'd make the favorite, okay? Bud Crawford versus Tommy Hearns. Welterweight.
Woo! I mean, I can see, I know coming from you, these are going to be tough. And basically, so you're talking Bud Crawford, who we saw recently against Spence.
Against the Hearns that beat Cuevas and lost to Leonard.
And lost in that era. Jeez, I really believe that I would go with Tommy Hearns on a decision.
So you make him a favorite. I don't think I have to ask you this, but just to clear the deck, you would make Ray Leonard a favorite over Bud.
Yes, I would. Okay,
now it gets tough. Bud against Felix Trinidad that had the great run at welterweight. Who would you make the favorite?
I would make Bud Crawford like a slight favorite.
Okay. Bud Crawford against the killer Donald Curry before the Huntington fight.
Off what I've seen of Bud, and especially I'm going on that last fight, I'm going to make Bud Crawford the favorite here over Donald Curry.
Okay. How about the best Mayweather we've seen at 147?
That is a big wow. You know what? I am going to go with making Floyd Mayweather, a slight favorite.
Wow, that is a wow.
Very interesting fight. And if you got more, keep coming at me, because I want to tell you that something we plan on doing that you're going to be involved in.
You're going to do a welterweight tournament.
We are going to do a welterweight tournament, buddy. But here's the big but. In any welterweight tournament that we might put together, and if all of our viewers were to sit down and pick, if we took, let's say, maybe the 128 men over the last century who were welterweight champion, and then you had 128, you had 64 fights and 64 winners. Now it's 32 fights, 16, 8 fights, 4 fights, and then 2 fights, and then down to the finals. I think everybody is basically going to vote for Sugar Ray Robinson. Right? Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we're going to do on Sirius Radio, me and Jerry, and we're going to probably start this right after the new year. We are going to, just because I think we all agree that the guy by the name of Walker Smith, Sugar Ray Robinson, probably was the best welterweight who has ever climbed into the ranks. So let's do this.
Take him out of it.
Right, take him out. Now, you've got Mayweather, you've got Crawford, you've got Sugar Ray Leonard, you've got Trinidad, you've got all these guys.
Griffith,
now,
Rodriguez, Napoles,
now
Basilio,
exactly.
Gavilan.
Now pick a winner. And I think now it becomes one hell of a tournament.
All right, let me give you a couple more with Crawford, and we'll move on because I just want to know where you're at on these. Yeah. Crawford against the best De La Hoya at 147.
Oh, my God, there's another one. I think that Crawford would be the slight favorite.
You'd make him the favorite? Yes. How about over Whitaker at 147?
I would make Crawford another slight favorite here. Just because,
and over Shane Mosley?
Just because I think the size difference there.
Harder puncher, better offense.
Better offense. I mean, look, Pernell Whitaker, oh, man, at his very best, he was a beautiful fighter to watch. But I think the Pernell Whitaker that I've seen, I was ringside for so many of his fights. Hey, I was commissioner when he beat Buddy McGirt. I was sitting right there. And I was in awe at what...
The first or second time?
Both times.
Both times?
I still think that Bud Crawford would be a slight favorite over Pernell Whitaker.
Okay. So basically, regardless of where you put Crawford, he's really a special fighter and generational fighter and talent that yes. When we think about the old days and the good old days, he's a guy that probably could have lived with any of the guys that we, love and have fantasy fights about over.
I think so. He's got one of the highest boxing IQs I've ever seen. And I'm lucky that I've been at ringside for so many of his fights at 147, 140, 135.
He processes so fast. He only needs a few rounds to figure out. Once he sees something, he sees a hole, he just grills it and opens it and beats it to death, and he gets the other guy to fight from his weakness. He's mean. He can go from both sides, and he's never even had a close call. So anyone who knows me knows I'm a big Bud Crawford fan, and it's just a shame that he's 36 because I don't know how much more is left in the hourglass for him. All right, let's move on. This weekend, Shakur Stevenson, 20-0, 10 knockouts, is fighting Edwin De Los Santos. And you're good with those names, much better than me and Jack. 16-1, 14 KOs for the vacant WBC lightweight title. I don't have to ask you who you're going to pick. I know you're going to pick. You're picking the same guy I'm going to pick. And if Jack were here, he'd pick Stevenson too. Where do you see Stevenson in that very crowded lightweight division in that range of 35 and 40. So let's include Haney, Lomachenko, Lopez, Tank, and all the elite light, and I guess Ryan Garcia too. Where do you see Stevenson?
I think first we have to get a look at him at 135. From what I'm hearing, everybody who's telling me they've seen him in the gym, watching him work out and so forth and so on, that he has really grown magnificently and naturally right into 135. And he looks the part. You could see the difference if you look back at him as a featherweight, where he always looked good. He was trim, he was lean, long arms, long muscles, this and that. But when you look at pictures of him then and now, you could see how his body has filled out. The same thing, and I'll say with Xander Zayas, when he started out as below welterweight, and now Xander Zayas is basically a full-blown 154-pounder and getting bigger and stronger by the second. That's what's happening.
And he's only, what, 20, 21?
21 years old. And look, Shakur Stevenson's not much older than that. And I think he is much like Bud Crawford. Maybe
I think he's in that Mayweather-Crawford template.
Yes. He won't switch hit like Bud, but Bud could do it like few guys ever. And he's just as comfortable right-handed as he is left-handed. But Shakur Stevenson is another guy like Bud Crawford. The bell rings, and he will play with you with the jab, and he moves, the upper body moves, the head's always moving. He's pulling away from shots, blocking shots. And now, after a round and a half, he's basically figured you out. He's got your speed, he's got your timing, he's got everything about you, how you jump in, how you lean in, where you bring your hands back, everything about it. Then he says, okay, time for me to go to work. And he starts counter-punching you to pieces. And I think you're going to be very impressed with what you see against Edwin De Los Santos. And I think it might be competitive early on. But then you're going to see this brilliant boxer puncher in Shakur Stevenson as he goes to work and becomes that chess master who's, okay, I've seen you make your moves. I know where I'm going to move my knight and my bishop right now. Now my queen is going to strike. Whap! It's over. Checkmate. And then from there, I mean, he's got the lightweight division. I would love to see him get in with some of these. I'd love to see him fight like an Isaac Pitbull Cruz. But look, guys like Ryan Garcia, you're not going to see him at 135 anymore.
No.
The 140-pound division is the old 135-pound division.
Yep.
He has moved up. And I think for now, we had on trainer Kenny Ellis, one of the trainers of Gervonta Davis. We had him on today on SiriusXM. And Kenny Ellis was telling us, I said, in all honesty, is Gervonta Davis having trouble making 135? And he said, no.
He better stay at that weight.
Do you really? Okay, we'll talk about that, because I know guys who train in the gym with him, and they tell me with bigger gloves, he is boxing middleweights and super middleweights and basically knocking them down, that he is maybe the best puncher at 135, the best puncher at 140, and maybe even the best puncher at 147. I don't know.
I think he's one of the best punchers in the game. I saw where Shakur said the other day, maybe it was today, in fact, that he actually thinks Crawford, he sees him with heavyweights and hurts them, and thinks if he fought Canelo, he could hurt Canelo as much as Canelo could hurt him. As far as the lightweights go, I think that if I had a choice and I could buy into the future of any one of the guys at 135, I'm a big Tank guy, but I think I would take Shakur over Tank. I think he's like Mayweather and Crawford in that, even though, although Crawford's becoming a life taker, even though they weren't huge punchers, I think they were very strong guys and sturdy guys. And I think that'll be the difference. And I love Shakur's water style. He can adjust to anybody. And he whatever you want to do, he'll do the opposite. You want to trade, he'll box. You want to box, he'll rough you up and bang with you. But the division is really exciting. But I'm going to tell you this much, and I'm a huge fan. Maybe Tank can go to 140, Randy. But I'm telling you, once he gets up there, his short arms and his lack of height and length are going to be a problem for some of those guys, and they're going to be able to do some damage to him outside before he can get inside. So I don't know how much bigger he can go, but I know this much. One of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound, extremely gifted, can box, can punch, and has a great fighter IQ that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about him. But you know what? You see him do something, a guy makes a mistake on him, he only does it one time, and that's it.
Exactly. I mean, and we're talking about a lot of guys with that brilliant boxing IQ, and Shakur is one of them. But I have been more and more impressed every time I see Gervonta Davis. I never realized how good he can box. The way
and he's got speed.
You talk about his lack of height. I think he uses that lack of height to
his advantage. He makes guys reach and lunge, and he comes up and under. Exactly. Yes.
They are reaching for him, and as he makes that little move to the left, to the right, he has such incredible power. You saw what the body shot did to Ryan Garcia. And at first, a lot of people were saying about Ryan Garcia, "Oh, get up. And then when he didn't get up, man, they trashed him. But all those people who were yelling, "Get up, get up,"
never got hit with a body shot like that. That delayed reaction.
Hello. When you get hit with a body shot like that, your legs come right out from under you. The pain rifles down your side, and there's nothing. Your head is saying,
you're paralyzed.
Your head can say, "Get up," all you want. Your body can't do it. And that was not because Ryan Garcia quit. He didn't quit. He couldn't get up. And Gervonta Davis is going to do that to a lot of guys. Now, could he do it to a Devin Haney, to a Regis Prograis? Could he do it in a rematch against Ryan Garcia, who says at one
he don't Ryan Garcia in a rematch? Well, I think.
I think if Ryan Garcia wins fight after fight and does it in devastating fashion and says, "See, I'm a 140-pounder. I killed myself. I dehydrated myself to make 135.
There's a little truth to that.
I believe it. Look, all of us who have fought at these lighter weights, we know that every single pound, you have a division. Instead of just featherweight to 130, you could have 127, 128, and 129.
Yep.
Because there is a big difference. Look what Leo Santa Cruz, when he built himself up to 130, and Gervonta Davis dropped down from 135. But then, of course, when the bell rang, he was 140 or whatever.
Right.
When he hit Leo Santa Cruz, he put him in another world. This wasn't 230 pounders against each other. I think that Gervonta Davis, we haven't seen yet how good he really is.
I believe, just like I said about Crawford, I believe Tank's best fight is still out there. No doubt about it. But Frank, I do think at the end of the day, I think that if he stays at 35 and secures there, I think they'll be the Leonard and Hearns of that division as long as they stay there. I think they are the two best of the two of them. I give Stevenson a slight edge.
And what are we talking about? A year from now, year and a half from now, 2 years from now?
You mean for them to fight?
Yeah.
Randy, the way things move in boxing today, They might be 40 before they fight, but the fight would be a super fight probably in about a year and a half. Once Sakura gets the WBC belt, Tank makes another defense or two, it'll be a huge fight. Okay, this week, or actually last week, late in the week, the Saudis are looking to put a big super card on because what happened with Fury and Ngannou messed things up. Fury got beat up a little bit. Now they're looking to stage a big fight with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua on the same card, and Dimitri Bivol and Daniel Dubois and Martin McCauley. There's 5 heavyweight fights there.
I'm also hearing that the monster from Canada
4 fight heavyweights.
Arslanbek Makhmudov.
Yes. I didn't want to mention him up because I butcher his name. But yes, so that would be 5 fights and then the Bivol fight.
Well,
do you think this card comes off?
Makhmudov is like 6 foot, just short of 6'6".
He's huge.
He's about 19-0 with 18 knockouts. He's the kind of puncher, if he misses you, he hurts you.
Very heavy-handed.
Oh, my goodness, is he heavy-handed. And I give him as much a shot as anybody. What's funny is I would love to see, now on that card, there's another outstanding heavyweight, not so much heavyweight fight, but Frank Sanchez, the transplanted Cuban, who has a huge amateur career. He's undefeated in the pros in about 22 fights. He's taking on former contender from New Zealand, Junior Fa. Well, Junior Fa, his best days are back there. And Junior Fa if he doesn't get knocked out by Frank Sanchez, he will get totally trashed. Frank Sanchez will win.
Yeah, he'll be.
But what I love to see is Frank Sanchez, who goes about 6'4", 225.
Right.
And I'd love to see him against Makhmudov. It would be the ultimate puncher against maybe the ultimate boxer in the heavyweight division. So maybe in 2024 we could see that fight. But yeah,
Sanchez has to get busy again because he had some momentum for a while and then he just disappeared.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
but on this card, you've got, and I don't even know if you mentioned, you did mention Deontay Wilder against Joseph Parker, also on the card in a co-feature. Deontay is one of the 2 features. The other one is Anthony Joshua,
right,
against my buddy Otto Wallin. And this is not a gimme fight for Anthony Joshua by any means. This is a terrific card. Now, let me ask you this. And I think Daniel Dubois is on the card as well.
Against either Chisora or Jarrell Miller.
And that's fine. That's fine. We get a look at all these guys. Just 2 fights alone is worth the price of admission. And that's Anthony Joshua against Otto Wallin and Deontay Wilder against Joseph Parker.
Which is not a gimme for Wilder.
Nope, not at all. And
because after seeing Fury, I got to believe Wilder's not the same guy. And if Parker boxes and doesn't trade with him and makes him work, I could see. I mean, there's a path for Parker.
Absolutely.
I don't think I would pick him, but there's a path.
So let me throw this out at you, Frank, and all the viewers out there. This is a pay-per-view event, and we're so tired of pay-per-view, but I'm tired of talking about pay-per-views.
I'm getting this one.
Okay. And they're $49.99, they're $59.99, they're $79.
This is going to be more than that.
I would pay. Listen, when my wife and I go out, and we're going to the theater next week and everything, we will spend a couple of $100. We go to dinner, we spend a couple of $100 or whatever. You know what? Would I pay $99.99? Would I pay $100?
Yes, you would.
Here we go. I got it sitting right there, just waiting. This is just waiting to pay for this. Would I spend $100 for the entertainment value that I want from my fight cards? Just for those 2 alone, I will spend a Ben Franklin. And then you got all the rest. You got the Makhmudovs and the Dubois and everybody else. What a great bargain this is.
But the purpose of this, I believe, is to get to Joshua Wilder next year.
Yeah.
Do you believe that fight's ever going to happen?
I think I gave up on it a long time ago. Look, once upon a time, they were trying to make this fight when Anthony Joshua was unbeaten, when Deontay Wilder was unbeaten.
They blew it. They blew it.
Had the championships, and they got greedy. And I do think, from everything I read, from everything I heard, from everybody I spoke to in the business, I do think it was more on the part of Anthony Joshua getting a little bit. He said, Deontay, I'm going to take the lion's share of the money. And it's going to be 70-30. Okay, 65-35.
He had the leverage back then, but he overplayed his hand.
And exactly. And you're going to come over here to fight me. And Deontay said, wait a minute. I'm as much a champion as you are, and you're going to take the lion's share, and you want me to come into your backyard to fight you?
He overplayed his hand. There's no doubt.
Without question. And I don't blame Deontay Wilder for turning it down, but they should have been able to negotiate this, because there was so much money to be made that even if it was like 55-45 or something like that, the 45% would have been more than just about any fighter in history has ever made.
Think about this. And look, I know you love to see fighters get paid and make a lot of money. Yeah. I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
Nope.
But at the top of the division, there's almost too much where now they fight once or twice, if we're lucky. They make the big money, and then they want to protect themselves, and they don't fight because they don't want to blow the next big fight. Think about this. Before Ken Norton fought Ali in 73, his biggest payday was $8,000. He fights Ali, and he gets $50,000. Now, look, $50,000 was a lot of money in 73, okay? Sure. But you couldn't retire on that and never do anything, where these guys today are making so much money that if Joshua and Wilder are smart and Fury is smart, they never have to work again. And even though that's good for them, that's hurting the sport. And Randy, the heavyweight division, I think I think the mean is pretty low, but that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of great fights out there. The problem is nobody wants to risk a loss, and then we get kind of we pay for that. Now look at Dubois. He's lost 2 fights now. He's at the point now where he doesn't have to worry about protecting an undefeated record, and he wants to make money. So he's taking a risk. Fighting Big Baby Miller is no walk in the park. He's a big, strong guy that you can't hurt. And if Dubois can't hurt him, 6 or 7 rounds in a fight, he could get gas and stop. That's a risk. Wallin is no gimme for Joshua. In fact, I actually think Joshua is capable of losing to anybody. I don't know what Wilder has left. He's fought 1 round in 2 years. It's like, but the money, as great as it is for the fighters, it's hurting them. Look what it did. I didn't want to talk about this, but I think we have to address it, and I never got your feelings on it. But look what the big money did to that fat blob, Tyson Fury, who embarrassed the sport, tarnished his record forever, and made a mockery out of everything. And on this show, the Monday before the fight, I told Jack, the fight's going to go the distance, and neither guy will get hurt, because I had no confidence in Fury. I knew he wouldn't be in shape, and I've watched Ngannou enough to know that he's a big, tough guy. He loves boxing. He's no punk off the street. He's no football player. He's a real fighter. Is he a boxer? No. But if you know what? If you're a real fighter, that makes a difference. And you know how to box a little bit, and they did a good job preparing him. And then Fury shows up like a blob. Why? Because it was a money grab. I'm sure he made $50 million. What does he care?
Well, exactly. Look, he was overconfident, Fury, for this fight. He didn't think that Francis Ngannou was anything. He thought he was muscles on muscles. And he figured he would move around the ring, slap him around with the jab, and use his reach and his height and speed and everything like that, and just slap him around and knock him out. Because why? Because he was an MMA fighter who's used to using the elbows and the knees and the rear naked chokes and the takedowns.
But Randy, he only did that a couple times. See, that was my thing with Ngannou. Most of his wins are stoppages because he beats the crap out of guys. I think he only has 2 submissions. So that made me think he was in the fight a little more than people thought.
Well, I didn't really think he was, because I said now he's going to be in against the heavyweight champ. As much as we abhor everything he does outside the ring, and he flaunts the fact that he gets out of shape and he goes well over 300 pounds and he's got to cut back down, and he shows up at the weigh-ins looking like he's 15 months pregnant. Well, it was very embarrassing for boxing.
We'll never live that down.
But the thing is, he may be able to kind of erase a little bit, because I think, and just as Usyk thinks, Usyk said, you know what? He didn't take Ngannou seriously.
Absolutely.
He is going to take me seriously.
Absolutely. He has to.
And that's why he wouldn't take the fight December 23rd. There was still that open date, and that's what this has turned into in Riyadh. Now,
right.
December 23rd show with these heavyweights we were talking about. It was supposed to have been Fury and Usyk, but Fury realized he better train for Usyk. So the fight, from what I'm understanding, is not even going to take place in January. That it's going to probably be from the
February,
early part of February to somewhere around mid-February. Why? Because Tyson Fury is going to train for this fight, perhaps as he has not trained for anybody since maybe he trained for Deontay Wilder for that 3rd fight.
Randy, before the last charade of October 29th October 29th, right? I get that 29th mixed up with July with Crawford and Spence. Until October 29th, I was probably pulling for Fury to beat Usyk. I hope Usyk beats the hell out of him now. I want Tyson Fury. I want him gone. I think he's a disgrace. He's everything that's wrong with today's modern athlete. And Usyk is a real fighter who takes it serious, doesn't sell anybody short. You could tell that he wanted the fight. It was Fury who was the one who drug his feet, tried to get the money grab. He's embarrassed. And I hope if the fight comes off, I hope Usyk beats the hell out of him. I'm not sure he will, but I hope he does.
You know, it's funny because from what I'm understanding, Usyk is a slight betting favorite. You want to go to Vegas, you want to place a bet or whatever, he's the one who's the betting favorite. But if you take the sentimental favorite, well, quite frankly, that is Usyk. You want Usyk? I'll tell you, I want Usyk. Most of our boxing,
we just respect him much more. It gives the sport more credibility if he wins.
And by the way, I just want to ask you this question because we haven't discussed it on this show. And I think you and Jack touched on it when Daniel Dubois fought Usyk and there was that call of a low blow. What is your feeling? Was that a knockdown or no knockdown?
I thought it was a legit body shot. And when I saw the punch where it landed, I think Usyk played to the crowd. I think he was hurt.
Okay. I thought right away that referee Louis Pabon did a good job by saying low blow. But as I spoke to just a number of people, and as I watched it again and again, remember, you just have one quick call when you're in there line as a referee. But the thing that people don't understand about a knockdown, about a belt line shot, if a punch lands on the belt line, you know, you might have your name. It might say Lo Tierzo right on your belt. And I hit you right below the low tierzo. Well, everybody, oh, low blow. No, it's not a low blow. And I'm going to do this. We're going to play a little Simple Simon here. I'm going to ask everybody watching here to stand up. And I'm going to stand up with you. And we're going to play a little Simon Says. Now, Simon Says, put your hands on your hips. Now, my belly button is over here. I would be wearing my trunks right over here that said Gordon, the commish, be right here. But my hips are over here. Anything below the hip area is a low blow. So every time you see a punch land on the waistband, no, that's not a low blow. Do the hip thing, do the Simple Simon thing.
Right.
Put your hands on your hips. Your hips are not up here. Here's my belly button. This is not where my hips are. My hips are down here. That's where your hips are. And if a shot lands there, which is well below the belt line, so there's this whole thing. Oh, it's below the belt. It must be a low blow. Wrong. That was a right uppercut that caught him right on the belt line.
Yep.
It was a fair blow, and he went down.
Randy, he hit him with shots lower than that during the fight. There are pictures of it, and Usyk didn't go anywhere.
Well,
there were pictures posted all over after that fight of shots that were lower than the one that dropped him. No low blow called. Nothing happened. The fight was never broken up. So I think that was a Fugazi. I think Usyk was hurt.
Yes.
I don't know how that applies to him fighting Fury, but I think in that instance he was hurt.
I do think he was hurt, and I think once he heard low blow, he now knows the referee is
exactly. He had an out. And he knew he had an out.
He did the right thing. As hurt as he was,
yep.
He said, "You know what?
I got 5 minutes."
Body shot. He's thinking, "Oh, this hurt." So he decides to just kind of grab himself. Oh, and he pushes himself back against the ropes, and people are going, "Oh my God, was that a low shot? Oh, he must be so hurt." But it wasn't a low shot. And in retrospect, there really should have been a count. And my question is, if the count was 5, 6,
could he have beat the count? We'll never know.
I think he would have got his ass up. You know what? He would have done then he would have gotten in the position. Referee would have looked in his eyes. And, "Are you okay?" "Yep." And Dubois would have come at him firing shots. What would Usyk have done? Usyk would have tied him up. He would have tied him up. And I think the ending would have been this. I think he would have survived.
I'm not sure that cost Dubois the fight, but he would have had a lot better shot, and he'll never be in that position again. No. Randy, we're only down to about a minute and a half. Today is the 31st anniversary of the first Holyfield-Bowe fight. One of the all-time great fights for sustained action. Holyfield lost. I think he gained respect in the loss. It was Bowe's signature night. If both of those guys were around today, and I hate to sound like an old timer that hates everything new because I'm not that guy. If those two guys are around today, where would they fit in?
Right.
That Bowe and that Holyfield.
Holyfield, all-time great. We know his heart, his boxing ability, everything about him. Riddick Bowe, I think he could have trained a little bit harder, but all around, Riddick Bowe had all-time greatness in him. He just didn't have quite enough discipline, but he truly was a lot better than he should.
On that night, he could have lived with almost any heavyweight ever. He was that good. The night he beat Holyfield when they were both undefeated, that Riddick Bowe was a great fighter.
Oh, absolutely. Do we have 20 seconds to just meet? I want to throw one thing out there very quickly. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I think it is going to be the new Las Vegas. I didn't a couple of weeks ago. I'm starting to think that
I agree.
Really going to change. And I think it's no longer going to be Lost Wages, Nevada. I think it's going to be Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. They got the money. They got everything else. That's where the big fights are going to happen.
They have the money to change the landscape, just like they're trying to do with golf. And I think it's going to happen with boxing. Randy, I want to thank you for coming on. The hour flew by.
Wow.
as always, great talking to you. I'm sure everybody watching tonight, you did a great job. We had fun. I'm sure we'll do it again. I can't thank you enough, and I know Jack feels the same way. Thanks so much for coming on tonight and adding to the show. You really were an asset tonight, and I appreciate that, and I thank you.
And I thank you guys. Thank you, Jack Hirsch, for taking the night off. Jack, I love you. You're the president of Ring 8 of the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. You do a great job, and I absolutely adore Jack Hirsch.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.